Welcome back to the Sports News Analysis YouTube channel. My name is Mike. Guys, it's time for the Friday Q&A. This is my first Friday Q&A I've done here. Got some pretty good responses in the comments. Want to thank all of you that did submit questions. I'll be doing this every week. Any questions you have about the NFL draft, or fantasy football, hit me up with those questions, and I'll be more than glad to answer them for you. Let's get right to it here, guys. The first question is from Emily. Emily asked if I thought that will the Eagles make the playoffs? And this is what I'll say, Emily. I think the Eagles are by no means a playoff team right now. They've shown a lot of holes on defense. They've shown inconsistency on offense. They sit at 1-3. The only reason I have to say they do have a chance, though, to make the playoffs is because they're in a division where the division leader is 2-2. They're 1-3. They're one game behind. They still have numerous division games left, most notably 2 with the Cowboys. So to say they can't make the playoffs right now is very premature outright. But I don't believe like they're playing like a playoff caliber team. We got to see how this team really reacts to playing at the tempo Chip Kelly wants to play at all season in terms of injury and in terms of production on the field. How does this offense and its speed and tempo it plays at, how does it affect the defensive players? Them being on the field more because of this, does it affect them? How did the big three hold up on offense? Michael Vick, Deshaun Jackson, LaShawn McCoy. I think if any one of those three get hurt, the depth is really a problem across the board for the Eagles. And again, for me, it's more about that defense getting better and showing progress throughout the season, because right now they're just a dreadful unit. So, Emily, I wouldn't be too optimistic they make the playoffs, but in a bad division, you never know. Next question comes from Heyman. He asked some draft questions. If you guys haven't checked out my draft stuff from last year, be sure to. I posted, I think, like 100 or 150 videos just on the draft. So be sure to check those out. And I know Heyman's been listening for a while. He asked me some draft questions. One of them has to do with the Eagles, which I'll get to in a second. But he asked me, which of the following QBs do you believe will be successful in the NFL and why? And he listed some quarterbacks, most of the top quarterbacks you hear named coming out in the draft next year. And I picked 3 of these quarterbacks that I think are interesting prospects, and I think right now are the best 3 quarterback prospects that will enter next year's draft. I think any quarterback list as of right now has to start with Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater is 6'3". Well, that's not the prototypical type height for a quarterback. He's more than big enough to play in the NFL. If you watched him last year, you watch him this year, he has a great pocket presence. His ball security has gotten better each year. I mean, you see in the NFL, teams win 1 of 2 ways. Ultimate ball security, the Chiefs, okay? A passer who just is a great quarterback. Saints, Patriots, Broncos. They take advantage of all the rules in the NFL right now. I think Bridgewater is a mix of both those kind of quarterbacks. He has the arm to make all the throws that he needs to in the NFL. He has the poise. He has that. I think he has that it factor personally. I think right now he's clear and away the best quarterback coming out next year in the draft. Now, when the draft process folds out and we have all the tests and the combine and everything like that, we'll see how it unfolds. But when you think of Teddy Bridgewater now, don't think RG3, Russell Wilson. Think more of an Andrew Luck, a guy who is a pocket passer, but if he needs to, has the ability to run and pick up a first down for you. Pick up maybe more than a first down, run a guy over if he needs to, but he's by no means a running quarterback. He fits throws in very tight windows. He's not afraid to make the tough throw. The one knock you can say is maybe he doesn't play the level of competition that some of these other guys do, but I don't think that'll be an issue for scouts and GMs when they're evaluating Teddy Bridgewater. As far as another quarterback to keep an eye on, I believe is Brett Hundley, okay, from UCLA. Now, what you get with Brett Hundley is you get a big 6'3", 225-pound quarterback that has a smooth throwing motion, that has a rocket arm, but was maybe lacking in experience of, let's say, a Bridgewater or a Tajh Boyd that I'm going to talk about next. But I think the ceiling is much bigger with a guy like Brett Hundley as compared to, let's say, a Tajh Boyd. I don't think Hundley is the prospect that Bridgewater is because he's lacking that polish. You can see when he does get pressure on him, if you've watched any UCLA games, he does panic. As a lot of young quarterbacks do. He's not as good in the pocket, moving around the pocket as a guy like Bridgewater is, or Boyd for that matter. But still, a guy, if you watch him, the raw skill just oozes out of him. In the offense he plays in, which I do like at UCLA, they force him to make throws down the field. They force him to make throws down the field in tight windows. And I think his ability to have the guts to make those throws and be able to make those throws well will serve him well at the next level. I mean, how many times do you see these quarterbacks come in at the next level and, the offensive coordinators are forced to be conservative because they haven't yet advanced to that level where they can make those throws. I don't think that'll be a problem with Hundley. His pocket awareness maybe initially, and some inconsistencies in reading the different options he has in pass routes maybe. He can scramble if he needs to. I wouldn't call him a read option quarterback, but he probably brings more running to the table than a guy like Bridgewater. This is the guy you're going to be hearing about a lot in the coming months as the true, maybe a top 10 player where there's a little bit of risk involved because of his lack of experience, but his measurables and his throwing ability and his running ability will be off the charts. The third guy I wanted to talk about here is Tajh Boyd. Tajh Boyd stands at 6'1", 2 inches shorter than a Bridgewater or a Hundley. Tajh Boyd has the ability, okay, to make deep throws. We've seen it time and time again, whether it's DeAndre Hopkins when he was at Clemson, whether it's Sammy Watkins, who's still there. He has the ability to throw the deep ball. He's extremely accurate, which is very important going into the NFL. You know how like rebounding usually translates from college to the pros? I believe passing accuracy does too. He has the accuracy, fits the ball in tight windows, has the ability to make the long throw, is a very tough runner who can pick up tough yards for you. Obviously, a bevy of experience down at Clemson. And, hey man, you also asked who I thought would be the best fit for the Eagles if they should take a quarterback. Obviously, it's going to depend on where they pick, but I think Tajh Boyd's an excellent fit for them. And there's a couple of reasons why for that. Above all, on that Chip Kelly offense, from watching it as long as I have, I think you need a quarterback that is very accurate. He can make those throws, those bubble screens, those short throws very accurately and in a place where those receivers can get the ball and go. I think that's going to be Michael Vick's problem in this offense eventually as we see him play a whole season is his propensity for getting hurt and his accuracy. And I think a guy like Tajh Boyd would fit that perfectly. He's a tough runner. He can pick up tough yards when he needs to. He's used to playing for an out-of-the-box thinker and Chad Morris down there at Clemson, so I think he'll fit in good with Chip Kelly that way. The guy's a leader, okay? There's no denying that. Very smart football player, so I think he'd be the best fit right now that I see for that Chip Kelly offense, with obviously Marcus Mariota being a possibility if he decides to come out as well. But look, all the guys I named as far as my top 3 quarterbacks, they aren't seniors. So we'll see if they end up coming out or not. Just to give everyone, a heads up on that. These guys don't have to come out, but we'll see if they do. On to the next question here. Oh, actually, hey man, just wanted to point out something to you real quick. You asked some questions about the cornerbacks in this year's draft. I haven't started breaking down the cornerbacks yet. I've been mostly on the offensive side of the ball as far as the draft stuff goes. But next week, I'm going to answer your question on the cornerbacks and my prospects for them and how I see them, because there are a lot of good cornerbacks in this draft. You're right. And with the emphasis on passing in the NFL now, I think these guys will have even higher value. But I'll definitely answer that question for you next week. I didn't want to leave you hanging on that one. Papa 3, I'm sweating. Asked me about the NBA season. He sees the basketball behind me here. That ball is actually a ball signed by Walt Clyde Frazier. I'm based in the Northeast here, and I'm a huge Knicks fan. So I would love to do more NBA stuff. I know the game of basketball pretty well. I'll probably focus on just the Knicks because I know the Knicks pretty much inside and out. My knowledge of other teams is there. I know all the players. I know most of the coaches. But my ability to watch every NBA game or keep track of all the NBA games really isn't there like it is with the NFL. I don't want to just do videos to do videos and give you guys bad information. But the Knicks games, I pretty much have a strong pulse on, and I'll be ranting about the Knicks on here. Don't you worry, especially since they made a move to fire their GM, which I'm really not on board with. And you're going to have the whole Carmelo Anthony contract saga unfolding this year. So I'll probably do some Knicks videos, definitely. But the NBA as a whole, probably not going to focus too much on for the reasons that I just said. Moving on to Brady Lund. Brady asked, a pretty good question. He's a Chiefs fan, and he says, it's frustrating that the Chiefs aren't getting more media coverage. Is it a Is it a factor? Is it what is it a byproduct of? Their bad season last year or some kind of bias? And, you know, I think the reason why the Chiefs aren't getting too much media attention is because they're probably not an overexciting team to watch. And if I'm a Chiefs fan, I don't care that they're not exciting. They're winning football games. When you win with a remedy of a good defense and a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over, that's not exciting. That's not going to grab headlines. It's not going to grab highlights, but it wins you football games. And that's really all, as a fan, that you can worry about. If they keep on winning at the rate they're winning, if they play good against teams like the Broncos, if they win the game this week against a Tennessee team that's 3-1, they'll start to pick up steam. I think most of the focus on the Chiefs has been on Andy Reid more so than the players. But when you got a Justin Houston playing like he is, when you have Alex Smith playing well, you throw in all the other good players on that defense, they'll gain more attention as the year goes on, and they're off to a fantastic start. What do I think of the Chiefs so far? They're off to a great start. You can point at their schedule, to be fair, and say it hasn't been the strongest. But they've looked impressive in the wins. I think you look at the Chiefs as a team that's going to be probably a 10 to 11 win team. We'll see how the season unfolds with injuries and things like that. But I think they'll definitely be a wild card team in back of the Broncos here. And look, how far can Alex Smith take them will be the sort of the caption for the whole season. And we'll eventually see that. But you have to like what you see from the Chiefs so far. They don't turn the ball over, and they play great defense. And they had timely returns in the special teams like they did last week from Dexter McCluster. And you asked about the Jets. I'm a Jets fan. I think Brady knows that. They're 2-2 so far. He asked if I think, how the Jets are playing and my feelings on the Jets. My feeling with the Jets is this. They're 2-2. They're building something on defense. I worry a little bit that maybe Rex Ryan, he might be on his way out, and the defense will never be as good without him being the de facto coordinator. Geno Smith, the jury's still out on him. Not too worried about Geno either way. If he doesn't pan out, he was only a second-round pick. They can draft another quarterback at the top of the first round if it comes to it. Think about what the Panthers did a couple years ago. They drafted Clausen in the second round. Didn't really like what they saw from him and drafted Cam Newton the next year. So the way the salary cap is now, Geno Smith's contract is not prohibitive at all. So let Geno play the whole season, see what he has, so this way you can plan on moving on for next year. I don't think the Jets are a playoff team, but I see some positive things, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They need skill position players. They have no skill position players. They have no one of consequence at the skill positions, in my mind at least, except for a couple good running backs. The artwork over my right shoulder. That is actually, I'm also a New York Mets fan. So we just found out today that Matt Harvey is going to have his Tommy John surgery, which was great news to find out over dinner tonight. But the artwork over my right shoulder is like a collage of different newspaper clippings, banners, and everything commemorating the 1986 New York Mets. And as a Met fan, look, that's pretty much all you got. So I do have some Mets memorabilia down here along with my Walt Clyde Frazier basketball, but that is a collage dedicated to the 1986 New York Mets. Ray B asked, what do you think about Colin Kaepernick? As far as Kaepernick goes, I think Kaepernick is going to be a solid quarterback. I don't think he's the dynamic top 5, top 10 quarterback we maybe thought he was at the beginning of the year. I think the 49ers found out early on this guy's not a drop back passer, or at least not yet. Use the gifts he has, get him out on the edge, run the read option, do some planned runs, put him in manageable down and distances, and let this guy do what he did last year. And I thought the 49ers got back to that very well against the Rams last week, so I'm really looking forward to see what they do against the Titans defense. That's a pretty good defense, but look, I think the brain trust there, Harbaugh, Roman, they're too smart, and they'll figure this thing out, and you'll see Kaepernick grow as a quarterback, and each and every year get better as a pocket passer, but he's not a full-fledged pocket passer just yet. Last question here from Vizio about Joe Flacco. He asked a question about Joe Flacco. Were his 5 interceptions last week, Was it more the defense of the Bills? Was it bad receivers or bad quarterback play? Look, I think it's gone where we can say, I don't think we can say anymore that Joe Flacco is a bad quarterback after what he did last year in the playoffs. What I will say is this, though, is I don't think he's a good enough quarterback that you can just give him any receiving core and he's automatically going to have success right away. I think he's like a normal quarterback in that respect where he needs to get used to his weapons. He got Dennis Pitta taken away from him via injury. Anquan Bolden's gone. He's getting used to a lot of new parts. I thought this curve would take place. I think he's going to be in a situation where when that defense plays good, I think it'll sort of make his offense and his offensive numbers look better when he's put in better field position. I think they'll get better as the season goes. And it's the biggest thing with the Ravens on both sides of the ball is I think if you're going to get the Ravens, you need to get them on the road in the first half of the year is where they're going to be most vulnerable. But I think a big thing that you didn't mention in your question that I think got improved this week was the offensive line. I think that offensive line is a little bit of a problem. They get Eugene Monroe and plug him in there at left tackle, which I thought was a big pickup. And I don't think his receivers are bad. I just think that they need time to develop, and I think you see Torrey Smith really stepping into that number one role in a very, very, very nice way. And I don't think he asked if it was a good defense. The Bills are an okay defense, but look, they put a lot of pressure on Joe Flacco. I don't look at the Bills' defense as being top flight by any means. I think it was more of a byproduct of Joe Flacco just having a really bad day, but by no means do I think he's a bad quarterback. Guys, those are the questions that were asked to me this week. Hopefully I did a good job answering them for you. Thank you so much for everyone who did ask questions. I'll post another thread earlier in the week next week to probably get some more questions here. But I think it was a pretty good turnout for the first one. Let me know what you guys thought of how I assessed these different questions that everyone asked. Hit me up in the YouTube comments. Hit me up on Twitter at SNewsAnalysis. Guys, we head into Saturday tomorrow, and then obviously we're on to the rest of Week 5. I'll be recapping all the games just like I did last week, and then I'll start my Week 6 previews early next week like usual. Thanks again for listening, guys. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't, and have a great night.